Hmm. Oh, ah. Well, hello there. Welcome back to Cultural Anthropology. Um, Today we're going to be talking about doing field research and what it's like to go out and be an anthropologist. And this will probably be the first week that you really get a chance to understand what being an anthropologist entails. What are our research techniques, and what are the things that we're looking for, and who do we deal with, and how do we deal with them? Okay, so it's kind of the first chance that you're going to look and see how we all deal with all of this fun stuff with culture. But before we get into that, I kind of want to talk to you about the movie from last week, Dead Birds. Uh, Dead Birds was filmed in 1963 and was filmed by an anthropologist, Robert Gardner, who was fairly famous for a lot of his early documentaries. And he gave us Dead Birds, which is a fascinating film, I think, and it's one of my favorite anthropological films. Um, but there are some complications. Just like Nanook of the North, we find that there are some issues that we're going to find with Dead Birds. Uh, so I think one of the big things that we're going to really sort of focus on here at this moment is that Dead Birds is, well, it lacks voices. Okay, and I think that's a really important thing to understand when you're doing research, when you're doing anthropological and ethnographic research. Um, who you include in your research and whose voices you use is extremely important. And we'll be talking about this concept of polyvocality in the lecture today. So pay very close attention to that. But it's this idea that as we're going out doing our research, that we need to include the voices of those we are working with. Not just their ideas and stuff, but their actual voices, their actual faces, to see them and to give them agency within that research. Dead Birds sort of takes from the classical anthropological view. And Robert Gardner, who was a really good researcher at the time, uh, sometimes when I watch it, I feel like he takes a little bit of liberty when it comes to describing what Pua's state of mind is, you know, and what's going on in that moment, and can Gardner actually say that Pua is feeling such and such a way and dealing with this with his family and blah blah blah. Can he actually make that statement? Did Pua actually tell him that? And he just relaying that information? Very well, possibly could have, right? All the stuff that he says could very well be exactly what happened. The problem is that there's a lack of authenticity to that, to this film. And it's because everything is done through the lens of the anthropologist, through the lens of the narrator, through the lens of the interpreter, right? You never hear anyone's actual voice within the film. You hear it in the background, right? There's some background chatter that you can hear, but it's hard to really discern any of the words, any of the language that's being spoken. And that's tough as an anthropologist. We want to sort of get information from the people, right? And what Gardner does is he kind of takes us on this story, right? He tells this story about this community and what they are experiencing, and I think it's a great documentary. But I think that any time that we are dealing with these kinds of subjects, we have to take into consideration what could be wrong with them. You know, what was done right and what was done wrong. And so I think that's an example of what we're going to be, focusing on, concerning like dead birds and how it sort of like fits into this realm of movie making, of documentary filmmaking, and sharing these ideals and this knowledge about doing research. And then for this week's film, we're going to be doing the axe fight. And the axe fight is, and I will go ahead and kind of preface a little bit. It's a little bit violent, hence the title. And there are some difficult things to watch, but I'll be completely honest with you. I have no more difficult time watching the axe fight as I do, say, like watching the 2006 riot at the Capitol, or what happened in Charlottesville, or any of the other, sort of violent acts that have happened and been caught on video. The axe fight is sort of the same thing. It's kind of like an early version of capturing an event taking place at that moment. The story is that they were setting up their cameras to shoot some stuff that was happening, and then all of a sudden this fight breaks out, and they end up going through and recording this fight that takes place. And then what they do, which goes beyond what most anthropologists do, is they analyze it, right? And they do some very interesting analyzation with it. And that's where I'm going to end, because I think next week I want to make sure that you've all watched it, so I don't give anything away, and we'll sort of conclude with the importance of the axe fight as far as anthropological research is concerned. With that, I'm going to go ahead and start the lectures. If you have any questions or concerns, reach out. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And we'll go from there. So I hope you enjoy, or at least tolerate, these lectures. I promise they're not as long as last week's. And we'll see you later. Okay?